Righty, welcome back to our series of videos covering every single non-backwards compatible game you need to pick up before the dreaded Xbox 360 store closure. In part 1 we covered 15 titles worth adding to your Ruddy collections, and would you believe it, we are back with 9 more. Sure, yeah, these games may not be exclusive to the console and all, but we all know there ain't no sound ruddy sweeter than that Chivo pop, is there? It's common ruddy knowledge that frisbees can be very dangerous when in the wrong hands. But that's kind of the hook of this game, as Dark Sector is essentially Killer Frisbee the game. You see, while Dark Sector may at first glance look like just another typical third-person cover-based shooter painted with the glossy Unreal Engine 3 visuals ever so present of the time,
which was the style at the time,
it is in fact so much more due to its boomerang of death-defining trick that's hidden under its extremely mutated sleeve. Sure, the game still looks visually stunning all these years later, giving off some strong Gears of War Resi 4 horror action vibes, as well as the tech virus infused narrative being absurdly dumb in the best way possible, but in all honesty why you should pick up Dark Sector is all thanks to the frisbee, boomerang, shuriken, or whatever you ruddy want to call it, fecking projectile of doom. That special abilities and limb dismemberment caper rud abilities make each and every encounter a joy to carve your way through. Not just that though, the glaive as it's called is used for some light puzzle solving at times and can be upgraded to do some truly nasty things, like the slow-mo player controlled aftertouch ability that is as gleefully satisfying as it sounds. It may be a shameless Gears of War-esque clone, a tad repetitive, and kinda lack any true character at times, but in short bursts, Dark Sector is just mindless, violent, dumb fun, and sometimes that's all you need from a game.
A hard-boiled cop caught in the crossfire will stop at nothing to see justice done.
It is no secret that Max Payne was extremely heavily inspired by Hong Kong action flicks of old like John Woo's Hard Boiled. Well, in 2007, old John Woo himself told Remedy to hold his beer and made his own game simply known as Stranglehold. Which just so happened to be a sequel to Hard Boiled, with Chow Yun-fat reprising his role as Inspector Tequila and doing what he does best, which is obviously mowing down armies of crooks in spectacular environment-destroying style. And yeah, well, the story is surprisingly solid. What will keep you coming back time and time again to this often forgotten gem is the absolutely ridiculous shootouts that will have you diving, sliding, hanging from fecking chandeliers, even rolling on carts, and if you're especially macabre, popping your foes in the old ding-dong, while every ruddy thing in the environment eviscerates from your lead spraying antics all in glorious bullet time slow motion glory. And yeah, sure, it may be a tad on the short side, but it's oh so sweet and just a ruddy and bloody good time not to be missed.
You may be asking yourself, what's an Irishman doing in Paris?
Oh, Pandemic, how we ruddy miss you. Not only did you gift gamers Battlefront 2, which was the absolute fecking tits, but on your last hurrah, you also gave us one of the finest, unique, and hella ruddy underrated open world experiences to grace the 7th gen.
I'm fucking Irish.
Of course, I'm talking about the Sabator, a wartime set, jazz and style infused spectacle that is ruddy unlike anything else out there. You see, while the Sabator is moronically labelled as a GTA clone, it is in fact so much more. Yeah, sure, it is open world, but this gem is its own unique beast that excels thanks to it dripping with so much ruddy charm, character, lair resistance, revolutionary shenanigans, while also boasting hyper engaging gameplay and a ruddy gripping narrative narrative that sees you slowly taking back the oppressed black and white streets of France from the German baddies and restoring it to beautiful, colourful peace and harmony.
This isn't my country.
The game looks great, sounds spectacular, as well as being atmospheric as all ruddy hell. The action is suitably bombastic, and also there is a ton of content packed into the title. But the fecking icing on the cake is there's a ruddy achievement for having a pint and a good old shag.
But soon, the women of your country will learn to savor the taste of a purebred German bratwurst.
What's not to like, really? Buy it, play it, and thank me ruddy later. How many times do I need to sing the praises of Blur before every ruddy body realizes that combining the weapon-based chaotic nature of Mario Kart with the visuals and ever so smooth controls of the Need for Speed series was a fecking match made in heaven that created one of the 7th gen's best multiplayer offerings.
He ain't lying.
Blur is not only a blast in its destructive all-out war multiplayer where mastering the maps, cars and power-ups is essential to victory, but Blur also boasts an excellent single player that's absolutely packed with content. And you gotta say at only £8 at the time of writing for a game that will likely forever be whipped out when the lads come over, well, then adding Blur to your collection is a no ruddy brainer. Oh yeah. While we're talking about games developed by Bizarre Creations, I'd be a ruddy fool not to recommend picking up The Club, an obscure game that combines the furious speed of an arcade racer and injects it into a third-person shooter. Sounds a little bizarre, right? Well, somehow racing to the finish line, racking up points for combos, and skill kills in a mad dash of bullets, explosions, speed and style is just as stupidly fun as it sounds. But even better, The Club also supports local multiplayer so you and your buds can compete to race, rack up points and enjoy the ragdoll physics ruddy shenanigans together.
Humanity has always looked skyward for its true path. We stood at the edge of destruction and would have fallen if not for the might of the God Emperor and his angels of death.
Hammer. What is it good for? Well, video game adaptations apparently. As the popular tabletop miniature strategy games world and lore even to this day seems to be the perfect fit for video games no matter the genre. But even though a sequel has been announced for Warhammer 40k Space Marine, the original is still yet to be made backwards ruddy compatible, which is a fecking shame as honestly, Space Marine 40k is the ruddy tits. That uses the Warhammer universe's well-established history to give us a bloody and brutal third-person shooter hack and slasher hybrid that's complemented by incredibly smooth and fluid gameplay, as well as an extremely varied and meaty arsenal of over-the-top weaponry that ranges from knives to chainsaw swords to ruddy warhammers. It's not all mindless though, and the weapons in the game must all be used tactically to overcome the odds. Whether you're a fan of the Warhammer IP or not, the visceral combat, engaging narrative, and the ridiculous orc-infused humour will leave you grinning from ear to ruddy ear.
I don't know how these weapons were made, or how the veil was found, but I can use both to destroy my enemies.
Back in the good old ruddy days before Raven Software's talent was squandered on working on ruddy Call of Duty after ruddy Call of Duty, the studio just gave us banger after ruddy banger, and as I've already covered X-Men Origins Wolverine in the previous video, it's time I recommend you go out and grab Wolfenstein 2009 and Singularity, as they are two of the finest, unique, and goddamn bloody enjoyable first-person shooters to grace the 7th generation that still don't get the bloody love they deserve.
He ain't lying.
First up is Wolfenstein. Wolfenstein combines all of the German baddie shooting goodness we're accustomed to with a healthy dose of the supernatural and also a plethora of sci-fi weaponry that's just as inventive as it is ruddy deadly to create a game that even to this day still feels as fresh as it did in goddamn 2009.
That man is a spy!
From the creative level design and the brooding, grim atmospheric tone to the merging of real-world and alternate reality shenanigans, the game just looks absolutely ruddy stunning. Mechanically, the game is tight, and thanks to a wealth of upgrades for the silly sci-fi arsenal and special powers accessible to old BJ Blaster, which the gameplay loop never gets stale. Bethesda have all but buried this game at this point, so make sure you add this tasty slice of Wolfenstein history to your collections.
I had great intentions, but they blinded me to the truth of what we created.
One of my favourite hidden gems on the platform that I'll probably never ever shut up about is Singularity, a game that takes every ruddy great thing about the previously mentioned Wolfenstein, polishes it to ruddy perfection, then injects some seriously immersive world building and also a ruddy boatload of horror-esque eerie atmosphere for good bloody measure too. Think Bioshock with a ghoulish Russian setting and you kinda got the idea. The visceral moment-to-moment gunplay is fast and also satisfying, as is all the time manipulating shenanigans and antics afforded to ya. But ignore all that, as the game is a must-have sheerly due to having the ability to age your enemies into nothing more than dust and bones in front of your very eyes.
But just imagine this power if applied to a human. The ability to age a man to dust.
So to sum it all up, Singularity is a ruddy, schlocky, pulpy and hyper-violent delight that's environmental storytelling is top fecking tier. If you're a fan of Half-Life or even Bioshock, well then Singularity deserves a spot in your collection.
I've seen plenty of bad things in this city. Nothing like this, though.
A decapitated body was found earlier today.
And to wrap this all up, I'm gonna shout out Condemned 2 Bloodshot. Yeah, sure, while I do thank the pixelated gods that the first entry of this series is playable on newer Xbox hardware, for whatever reason they forgot to make its sequel backwards ruddy compatible while they were at it.
How dare you!
Is it as good as Criminal Origins? Feck no it isn't. But does that make it a bad game? Feck no, it does not. As even though, yeah, sure, a lot of the nuance and unnerving dread of the original has been completely stripped out in favour of sheer bloody edge. However, gameplay-wise, Bloodshot is still a hobo-punchingly good time. And yeah, I'm ashamed to admit it, but bashing crackheads, criminals, and the homeless with either your fists or any blunt object you happen to stumble across is just as visceral, punchy, and as fun as you'd want it to be.
How dare you!
Got any change, mate? Nah, feck off. No super strength beer for you. Just a steel pipe to the old noggin, I'm afraid, me old chum. Yeah, that kind of sums up the game. While the story may not be as strong as the first and the levels not quite as realised, Bloodshot more than makes up for its shortcomings with its sound design, meticulous lighting and attention to detail that lead to some genuine scares. Just don't shit yourself when the bear attacks, okay? You've been warned. Nuff said. Right, hopefully that's enough games to tickle your pickle until next time. Don't forget to leave us a like, suggest some games down below, but more importantly, you guys stay healthy, stay happy, and as always, stay goddamn tipsy.